Okay, so I'm going to jump straight into it with this one. You can only help people from their frame. Okay, what does that mean? That means that the help that you give them has to be relevant to their current frame of mind, or else it's useless, or else you're doing it just for yourself. So let's kind of zoom out on this just simple statement. Usually when somebody comes to you for help, what you do is they come to you and then you explain what you would do if you were in their situation, and you think of how you would solve the problem from the perspective of you yourself. And this is kind of normal, but it's not the best way you can help someone. And a lot of the time, it's not what the person is looking for. Like, they're not looking for you to kind of just sit there and lecture them about how you would deal with the situation if you were them, which isn't really helpful because you're not them and they're their own individual person with things that they have to consider that you might not have to consider. Like, they're not the same as you. And so when giving advice in a way where you're just explaining what you would do can maybe be beneficial if they want like a kind of a reference to how they should act. But the better advice is helping them figure out, or the better way to give advice is helping them figure out what they should do themselves. You're kind of existing there and asking them questions and figuring out the problem so that they can solve it. You're not trying to jump the gun and solve the problem for them, because if you solve the problem for them, it will never be from their frame of mind. They will never be able to, like that solution, like think of it like this, like you've put a puzzle piece in a puzzle and it fits in your puzzle. And if you try to take this puzzle piece and you try to like fit in their puzzle, it doesn't fit. Like, it's a different puzzle. And giving advice without kind of thinking from their perspective or asking a lot of questions is kind of like jamming that puzzle into their puzzle, and you break the whole thing, and it's just not very like efficient and effective. So when a friend comes to you and they say, okay, like let's give an example. Like they say, okay, so recently I've like had this big argument with my girlfriend and I'm thinking of breaking up. You don't just go, yeah, like I hate it when I have arguments too. Like I would totally break up. Like, I mean, obviously that's kind of a weird example, but that it just makes no sense. Like, first you need to understand what your friend is feeling. You need to understand what's going on. You don't just straight away go into lecture mode and you're just like, breaking up, yes. Like that happened, like just some sort of like robotic like analysis of what you would do, your thoughts on everything. It's like you ask questions and you help them work through the solution. So what this practically looks like is, so they come to you, they say like, I'm thinking of breaking up with my girlfriend. You say like, oh, what happened? Like you inquisitive, and you probably already do this part, but the next steps is like genuinely trying to help them and restrict, kind of like being mindful of that voice in your head that's constantly trying to talk. Because this is like the main problem when giving advice is you can't like get your ego out of the way and hold space for the person so that they can kind of explore themselves and that problem through you, through your questioning, through your kind of compassionate like listening. And like watch my video on listening if you want to get like more details on the specific skills. I'll probably like link it down below or something. But essentially, being able to hold space for them so that they can solve their problem is essential. You don't want to keep just jumping in and basically explaining what you think. That's not very helpful. And so let me like dive a bit deeper into why this is really important, because you might not see the value just yet. But so when people are like kind of learning or thinking about their problems, every single like thing has to kind of be relevant for them to kind of take it seriously, for them to actually grow. So think of like their brain as just like this network of like connections. And when you're telling someone with like telling someone what you think without them understanding how it's important to them, kind of like what I'm doing, talking about communication, telling you why it's important. Like they need to understand why this advice is important to them, or just asking questions makes it so it's automatically relevant. But so it's like, why is it important to them? How does it relate? And that's how people actually like onboard information that you're telling them. Like that's how it becomes like ingrained into their mind. That's how you actually communicate from one brain to another. Like if I just started, like, for example, if I just started speaking in Turkish, you would have no idea what I'm saying if you're not Turkish, because the information is not relevant. And this happens on like a more micro level when you're giving advice. If you're giving advice that is designed for your brain to another person, they're not going to actually absorb that information. It's not going to be useful because they don't know how it's relevant or why it's important or how it relates to the things that they're already thinking of. So you need to ask questions to be able to make sure that the advice or the things that they come up with are relevant to their brain. So let's get more practical. So they come to you, they're like, okay, like, yeah, I'm breaking up. Like, I feel really frustrated. I just had an argument. Like, do you think I should break up? So if they ask you, do you think I should break up? Your gut reaction is going to be like, I think this, I think that, I think that. Pause that and just say like tell me more, like what happened? Get inquisitive, ask more questions, like what happened? So they go on and they're like, yeah, I don't know, like I was just like, I felt like I wanted to do this thing, like I wanted to do this business thing, and she was kind of being like kind of passive aggressive about it, and I just feel like I'm being like held back by this like relationship and stuff. And then you ask more questions. You don't jump the gun and assume you know everything, and you might like think of a memory you had where this happened to you in a relationship, and then you're like projecting all of your stuff onto that conversation. You hold the gun, you hold that thought that's telling you to just talk about yourself, talk, 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 talk. You hold that thought and you ask more questions. It'll be like, oh, is this the first time this has happened? Inquisitive, kind of digging deeper and deeper and deeper. And so as you're asking these questions, what's happening is the person is expressing more and more, and they're kind of, you're holding space for them to work their problem out. And you can give advice probably like at the end when you've gained a lot of clarity of the situation, you know, like why it's happening, you know, the problem, you have like some examples, you've kind of summarized it. And that's in my other video on communication, on listening. You've summarized it, you kind of understand, and you ask like at the end, you're like, would you like my advice, or would you want to know like what I would do, or what I think that you should do? All the way at the end, once you've gained like a nuanced kind of understanding of the problem. And if you do things like this, the information and the things that you say are going to be so relevant, and people are going to be like shocked. And I've had this in my personal experience as well, where just like, that is just like, it's like some people say like, that's just insane, like how you're giving advice or how relevant it is, or I feel super heard, I feel understood, and you're just able to help people way more. So keep these things in mind. This is just like a kind of a small section of just like this much larger topic of communication. But I just wanted to give this like small bit because I've noticed that I think 99% of people don't really understand this. They're always just kind of eager to speak, and like their attention spans and their presence during conversation is quite low. They're usually quite self-orientated. Even if you meditate quite a lot, you'd be surprised. Like if you you're not aware of the skills, or you don't have like a conscious understanding of how to communicate better, because it is a skill, you're still going to fall into those old habits of just like talking about yourself or giving advice without asking questions or without any curiosity. So yeah, I noticed that a lot of people struggle with this, so I wanted to make a video, and it's really, really, really been a game changer in my like personal relationships and just in life in general, because now I can be more loving, I can be more present, I can actually help people more. Because at the end of the day, like if your friend comes to you with a problem, you want to help them as best as you can. But yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. And hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you like this type of content, feel free to subscribe. I'm going to make more videos on communication and kind of how it links to spirituality, how it links to kind of creating the life that you want as well. And all the things that I've kind of learned and I found really useful in my life. But yeah, again, thanks for watching and take care. Bye.